Welcome to the Pauper format of Magic the Gathering. In watching this video, you'll be learning about the best budget format for this great game. Pauper decks use common cards exclusively, no rares, no mythics, not even uncommon cards. You might ask yourself, this format is so weak if you're only using commons. Where are the Planeswalkers? Where is my Emrakul? Well, we might not have the Eldrazi Titans, and we might not have those pesky Planeswalkers, but in the Pauper format, we don't really need them. This format is a fun, powerful, and competitive one without the need for those rare cards. Our decks are just as fun to pilot as they are to build. You might even call this format a brewer's paradise. But how does one go about getting into the Pauper format? You've scoured the forums of our Pauper on Reddit, and you're wanting to build your own Pauper deck. How do you go about doing this? All you've ever played before was Modern and Standard, and your Modern Tron deck can't be played in Pauper, right? Well, not quite, but the Pauper format does have a variation of Tron, Paupertron. It uses some of the key pieces of Modern Tron, such as the Urza lands, but we do have a bit of variation in how we can build our version of Tron. As some history of what a Tron deck is, the name is short for Urzatron, which obviously comes from the three Urza non-basic lands: Urza's Powerplant, Urza's Mine, and Urza's Tower. When these three lands are in play all at the same time, you can generate an enormous amount of colored mana. To use all that colorless mana, Tron's main win conditions are in the form of creatures like Wurmcoil Engine, Emrakul, the Aeons Torn, and the powerful Planeswalker Karn Liberated. The deck mainly is red-green and is extremely powerful and consistent. Many of the non-creature spells are focused on getting out the lands that we need to ramp up into our win conditions. This is what Tron is in Modern. But let's talk Pauper now. Despite not having access to the Wurmcoil Engine and Emrakul, we still have a ton of powerful options at our disposal to make for an interesting deck. We are still running many of the cards from the Modern Counterpart, but instead of it being red-green deck, there are two main builds for Tron: Temur Tron and Mono Green Tron. Let's start with Temur Tron. Temur Tron is perhaps the fastest version of Pauper Tron, and our main board is in Temur colors, red, green, and blue. But our sideboard includes cards of other colors, so at times we have a 3-color deck, other times we have 5. But to start off, we still do run our Tron lands, play sets of each. To generate our colored mana, we run a few Unknown Shores, and to help recycle any creatures that might find their way to the graveyard, we have Haunted Fengriff. Our creature base includes a playset of Fangren Marauder. This card is key to much of Tron's power. Not only is it a large 5/5 body, which is one of the highest base power and toughnesses in the format, but it also has the vicious ability to turn dying artifacts into large life gains for us. Matched against cards like Atog and Affinity decks, we will quickly gain humongous globs of life. Our opponents won't be able to outpace our life gain. In both variations of Tron, this card is run as a playset. We also run a few copies of Ulamog's Crusher. The Crusher is a big contender in Pauper, as it is the biggest and most useful Eldrazi in the format. An 8/8 for 8 with Annihilator 2 is nothing to scoff at, and its conditional to attack every turn is not really much of a downside when everything else in the format has at most 5 power or toughness. We also run in this version a playset of Seagate Oracle and Muldrifter. The Drifter gives us some nice card draw upon it hitting the field, so even if we evoke it and it goes to the grave, we'll still get a bunch of card draw. Our Oracle will help us filter through the top card of our library and dig for those Tron lands. The rest of the deck is mostly artifacts. We run a playset of Chromatic Sphere, Chromatic Star, Expedition Map, Prophetic Prism, and Prismatic Lens. These cards will all help us get the mana going super quick to power out our win conditions. The Expedition Map helps us get any of the Urza lands we might be needing to get going, and we run a playset of Ancient Stirrings. This card is actually a very powerful dig spell, as not only can we grab a land if we find one, but our big bad Eldrazi friends and our artifacts are also colorless, making this a very flexible spell. We also run a pair of Rolling Thunder to utilize all of that insane ramp for one giant burn spell. With enough mana at our disposal, we can burn away our opponents with one Mighty Blast. The last of our main board spells focus on some flashback value. Firebolt deals 2 damage to a target, and it has flashback, so we can use it later on if we need it. Chainer's Edict forces a creature to be sacrificed, and it also has flashback. Our sideboard contains some very useful tools to counter much of the opposition that you'll be facing, and it can be adjusted to your own meta. But Relic of Progenitus, Ancient Grudge, Ray of Revelation, and Earth Rift will help hate on your opponent's board. Relic will handle Delver strategies and Dredge decks. Ancient Grudge and Ray of Revelation hate on artifacts and enchantments respectively, and each of them has flashback as well. Feed the Clan is a powerful spell that is gaining some popularity in Eternal formats as a huge life gain spell. Finally, Circle of Protection from green and red will help you from any damage from those two colors. Now that we've covered much of Tron, let's talk about the other, perhaps more budget version of Tron, Mono Green Tron. This deck also runs the Tron lands and the artifacts of the other version, but we run a few more impactful spells to get our lands fixed out. To start, we have a playset of Crop Rotation, a very powerful instant spell that lets you sacrifice a land to get any land from your library into play. If you need a specific Urza land, this is the perfect way to assemble your trio. We also run a few creatures not seen in Tron. Alongside of the playset of Crusher and the Fangren Marauder, we have Aurochs Herd, a very useful creature that can replace itself in your hand with another copy of itself. Also, whenever it attacks, it'll get +1/+0 until the end of turn for each other attacking Aurochs. Given that it also has Trample, if you can get a few of these out at once, your opponent will be hard-pressed to block all that incoming damage. Finally, to search out any of our creatures, we run a Fierce Empath. This little elf can bring any creature with a converted cost of 6 or more from our library to our hand. That translates to just about any of our win conditions. Lastly, our mana base runs a few unique options that Tron does not. Colony Garden offers some early chump blockers to boink out in the first few turns of a game. Some forests are also used to produce some of the green mana that we need on a basic land. We also run a copy of Sejiri's Step, which gives a creature protection from any color until the end of turn. If we need to push through an opponent for some lethal damage, this also can be dropped out with a Crop Rotation at instant speed as an unexpected combat trick. Our mono green sideboard varies slightly from the Temur variant as we have a lot less color fixing to work with. Apostle's Blessing is basically a non-land version of the Sejiri Step, although you can cast it for 1 mana and pay 2 life instead of paying any white mana. Moment's Peace is a repeatable fog effect, and it's useful deciding against strategies that can get their field online quicker than you. Reap and Sow lets you off a land or tutor for a land that goes into play, and you can entwine it to do both. This is a very flexible spell, and since it doesn't target basic lands exclusively, you can use it to get any land. And lastly, Tangle is a better version of Fog that taps down your opponent's board for a turn, giving you the edge to hit back. Paupertron is a powerful and competitive deck in the format that can get online quickly to drop some incredibly powerful beaters. While it is a top tier deck in Pauper, like its modern counterpart, the cost to build it in either iteration is a fraction of what you would be paying for the modern version. This is the beauty of the Pauper format. Top tier decks only cost a fraction of some standard and modern decks. While Paupertron's price is a little bit higher than some other Pauper decks due to a lot of the cards being shared with the modern counterpart, you can still put the two of these decks together for less than $100 each in paper and about 30 tickets online. Considering the power levels of this deck, that's a small price to pay to get a competitive and strong deck. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you want to play Paupertron? Pauper is super popular on Magic the Gathering Online. Let's popularize it even more in paper Magic. You can help me out today by leaving a like or a comment on this video, sharing this video with your Magic the Gathering playgroup and your friends, and subscribing today to join the Planeswalker project. And thank you!